If you're about to make an investment and you're wondering, should I be using cash or should I use a policy loan? Well, stick around because that's what we're going to answer for you today.
Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast, where we teach clients how to build wealth and create passive income without the risk of Wall Street.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And like I mentioned before, today what we're going to be talking about is a scenario a lot of clients find themselves in is, hey, I'm looking to make an investment. Should I be using my cash or should I be using a policy loan? Anthony, how many times have you been asked that question?
Quite a bit.
I've been asked more.
No, well,
So
probably
quite a bit
not.
plus one.
You know what I found is this is typically more common at the beginning stages of their IBC journey, right? But I mean, I tell you, I've got clients, and I'm sure I will eventually share the story that have both. I mean, they're still using cash because they have so much cash outside the policy. So that's something we're going to talk about as well. Now, so Cameron.
Yeah.
Okay. So if someone is about to make an investment, right, but they're sitting on some cash, but then they also set up this policy, right? And they're excited. Hopefully they're excited to really practice IBC and put it to work. But again, they have this cash. So what should they use for the investment? A policy loan or cash?
Great question. Before I answer it, I do want to address that because you kind of alluded to it. Oftentimes when clients or this scenario comes up when somebody's brand new, right? We've started down the road of infinite banking. We've set up a policy, but maybe that policy isn't able to accommodate all the savings that we have on hand. So we do have some cash value and we do have some cash on hand. And so that's the dilemma that they go through. If we think about this scenario, what often goes through the client's head is, man, if I take a policy loan, is I do have to pay interest. If I use cash, I don't have to pay any interest, right? That's the thinking. And what I would tell you guys is that right there is probably one of the easiest and first stumbling blocks that a lot of people have when they approach infinite banking. And so what I would tell you guys is go back, revisit some of the fundamentals on infinite banking and make sure you understand the borrowing strategy, right? That's one specific example that I'd have you guys call us up, have you walk you through it again. And then what I would tell you is that you're 100% right. When you use cash is you're not paying interest, but you're also not earning interest either. And so that's the scenario that we want to be in the long run is we want to have our cash collateralized inside of the policy. So that's what I would say first and foremost. But to answer the actual question, if somebody is brand new to what we're doing, we still got cash out of it, I tell clients to use cash, right? Is we're going to use cash to go make that investment. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the cash value that's in that policy as our kind of capital reserves. So that's typically what we're going to do there. Well, I would say the bigger question is, why do we have so much money outside of the policy, Anthony? Would you agree?
Totally agree. There's typically two answers to that question. The first one is there's not enough room in your current policy. Now, that's a sign that your banking system isn't big enough to handle your personal economy, and it may be time to expand that system by starting another policy, right? Or maybe you already know that. You've already come to that conclusion, but just haven't taken the time, right, to start that policy. How many clients do we have that end up just sitting on cash and just it hasn't been a priority to reconnect, to start a new policy? The good news is, even if you're about to, again, it depends how much time we have, but if we can have 60 days, it can be very possible that we may be able to set up a new policy, whether it's like a one and done, right, where we just make that one single deposit, or if we have a lot of cash, we can do what's called a kickstart, where we make like a large deposit that first year and then smaller ones going forward. Now, the other answer to that question, why they have so much cash outside the policy, and this might be even more common, is they don't fully believe in IBC yet. Right. And now then if you're new to infinite banking, still trying to figure it out, it may not be time to expand our system. Yeah, we want you to understand this, get used to it, and comfortable before we start expanding. Or another reason why people don't believe in IBC is if they think, well, I don't want to have to pay interest. I would prefer to use my cash. And that's kind of what you had mentioned earlier, Cameron, where we need to go back to the basics. So really what we're doing is we're missing the whole point of infinite banking. And there's a little misconception there. And what a lot of people get hung up on is, well, if I use my policy, I got to pay interest. True. But also, if you put your money in the policy, you're going to be compounding while you're using it, right? So we want to continue to have our money always compounding. So like Cameron had mentioned, that borrowing strategy, we've put that into a video called Infinite Banking versus Paying Cash. So we will, that is in our course, but we're also put in a link to the YouTube video as well.
All right, Anthony, good explanation. Now, is there a scenario when somebody would use cash instead of a policy loan?
I would say, yeah.
When would that be?
Okay. What we don't want to deploy all of our cash. It's not sexy, but we need to have some liquidity. We need to have some money in reserves. So if you have some of that cash you have is part of your reserve fund, let's not touch it. Ideally, I recommend not even thinking about it. Sometimes even maybe putting the reserve fund at another bank. So, right, when you go on to your account, it's you don't see it. Out of sight, out of mind. But also one thing I want to make sure that we're thinking of is we do need to have reserves. But the question is, where is the best place to store those reserves? You can store them in your bank or your savings account, right? They're liquid and presumably safe. And but also you can put in your policy where it's liquid. And I would even argue it's much safer. And there's all the other advantages of the uninterrupted compound interest, the asset protection, tax-free. So what I recommend that people do is we need to have a reserve fund, but the question should be, I wouldn't want to save too much in an outside bank. Personally, for me, I have 1 month of expenses in my business account and then 1 month of expenses in my savings account. Then everything more other than that, I want to keep safe. So I'm not going to store it at a bank. I'm going to store it in my policy, but I know that that money that I have there is not used for investments as part of my reserve fund.
Well said.
Any comments? Because I have one more reason why you would use a policy loan instead of cash.
I would say this question probably comes up with us a lot. And the reason being is because when we do talk to somebody that's new to infinite banking, our advice is to start small. Right.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of clients that come in and maybe we talk them down on the premiums and make sure that it's something that's really comfortable for them. So oftentimes they do have more reserves than they do kind of in premiums and cash value. So I think if somebody's starting off with a little more conservative premium and starting that policy off, that's when this issue comes up. But go ahead and add your 2 cents.
Yeah.
So
well, I said there's another. No, I totally agree with you on that. There is another reason why I've told a few clients, even though they had the cash, I've told them to use a policy loan. And in part, I think it's that first time is always a little scary, right? We don't know how this works. And maybe that really believe in really any concept or whatever you're doing, you got to do it. It's not just setting up the policy, because that's not infinite banking, isn't set up the policy. Infinite banking is utilizing that policy. So we need to put our toe in the water and try this out. So a couple times I've told clients, this purchase here, I know you got the cash, but let's just try how this IBC thing works. So we had them take out a loan and then then deploy the money, and then they can see how the process works, how easy it is to get the money into your account, and also the flexibility in the repayments. Another advantage of doing this, which I call as practice, is we're also setting up kind of the processes and the accounts. Because if this is your first loan, we need to make sure that the account you want it set up in, that we have the routing number and kind of everything is set up. So we can practice, we can set up the direct deposit. So all that stuff is cleared and set up. So when it is time to really start practicing infinite banking, we can really hit the ground running.
Great point. That's also comes up too, is that sometimes clients will call with a sense of urgency, right? Hey, we need this. Well, right. There is a timeline that we got to go by as far as getting this stuff processed. So great way to practice on the small stuff. That way, when we have a big opportunity that comes along, we're familiar with what we're doing. So Anthony, great points. Hopefully this helped you guys out there as you listen, consume this. And as you guys start your infinite banking or start down the infinite banking road, you guys have a better understanding if and when to use cash versus a policy loan.
Go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
If you like this video, I know you're like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.